Capri and Tom.
Yep.
Okay. Now, real estate. I'm going to start with you, Capri. Why real estate? It was 2007 or 11?
2004.
2004. Okay. So you're in college at this time.
Sort of. So I was in college. I was on my co-op. So I went to Drexel.
Okay.
We had a co-op. I was working for a dress shop in Rittenhouse.
Okay.
And the owner of the dress shop and her husband sat me down at the Christmas party and said that you're not going to work at Leahy Fay anymore. And I was like, oh my God, you're firing me at the Christmas party. And they said, no, you are going to be getting your real estate license. And I think I was like 20 years old.
Wow.
So I went home that day and I'm like, oh my God, who does real estate? What is that? So I proceeded to go to real estate school, and the husband of the owner of the business set up his own real estate office.
Got it.
And then I was there until I did my first deal, and I was supposed to make $1,500, and he gave me $300.
Oh.
And it was a $52,000 property. And after I realized I only got $300, I quit and went to Berkshire, Prudential Fox Road.
So that's okay. There's a lot of things. There's like decisiveness. There's like
a
Star Wars plot or something. Okay, so first of all, you worked at their business, their place of business first, and they had this idea of a real estate office. Something that they saw in you made them think realtor. What do you think that was?
I was helping the husband owned a bunch of properties in the Northeast, so I was helping him communicate with the water department, the gas department. So I was kind of helping him do that as also being an assistant to the owner of the dress shop.
Okay.
So I guess, I didn't have much style. I don't know what I was doing in a clothing store anyway. So.
Well, I didn't dress myself either, so we good.
So, I wound up working for the husband more, was a better fit.
Now, Tom's looking pretty sharp. Did he work at the dress shop with you?
I did not, believe it or not. This is all me.
This is all waiting for that. Now, you guys got connected years later. You've been through, it's been 12 years in the business, hardcore, right?
Yeah. Is it 12? I think your math might be wrong. 14.
I'm not the best at that one. 14. Okay, got it. So how did you guys get connected?
So we got connected in, 2009?
I don't know what year it was. I know where it was. I don't know what year it was.
I think it was 2009. We were both in an event. We both volunteered for Philadelphia Animal Welfare Society for paws. Wow. And they had an event at Neiman Marcus out in King of Prussia. And I just signed up to volunteer to help out at it. And Capri came in and she had her Remax tag on. So I just went over, introduced myself. I didn't say a word about mortgages. Just, hey, Tom Mellett, blah, blah, which Remax office she out of. And started that way. And then, well, what do you do? I'm like, well, sell mortgages. And that's kind of how it all started.
Wow. So what's this foundation? It was
the Philadelphia Animal Welfare Society, or PAWS, over at Second and Arch is their adoption center. Okay. We're both huge dog advocates, animals in general, but both happen to be dog people. And it was just a great organization. I wish, fortunately, I don't really get to volunteer there anymore. My kid's getting older; he keeps me busy. She keeps me busy.
I can imagine.
But it was, it was great. I mean, it's a great cause. Anybody that would be interested in it, I would certainly encourage them to look into it as well, because, it's all pretty much volunteer driven. And, it's a big key to their success is having enough people to help out.
That's about 11 years ago. And, wait, my math. Hold on, wait.
I think it's about 9.
Check me. Wait. 2009. Okay. I'm bad today.
We're close.
So that being said, you have been collaborating in, the real estate business. We need other people to actually work with to get deals closed.
Absolutely.
Now, you met at an event that was, I guess, built around, there's a belief system that you share. It's like giving your time for things. Not everyone does that. So first question is, where does that come from, Capri, of service, that service mentality? And the second would be, how important is that for you and you, Tom, to how you pick who you're going to work with?
Sure.
Well, I feel like I have a lot to give back for, but probably when I met Tommy, real estate was really bad, so I had nothing else better to do. But
that's awesome.
That being said, so I feel like as I got older, I realized that I shouldn't be so selfish. So I always try to give back. And obviously animals is the easiest place to start because they're awesome. And I don't know how Tommy just loves animals also.
That's true.
So how important has that been in your careers? Is something that you constantly look for is hey, I want to align with people on other things than just what the business is? Because you met in an interesting place, and there's some kind of belief system alignment there, it seems like.
I mean, not to cut you off, but for me and for Capri, I'm sure it's very important. I've really had a lot of success from that world, from that whole animal volunteer world. Just getting behind it's an abuse case real bad in Jersey a few years ago, and the rescue that had the dog really needed funds in a bad way. So I posted my business Facebook page, like, hey, listen, I have 100 people that follow now or whatever. For every new like, I'm going to donate, I think it was $1 for every new like, that comes between now and the end of the month or whatever. And really just ask that network to get it out there and share it. Went from 100 to like 1,500. And
What, you had to donate the money?
yeah, but it was money well spent because a lot of there's people in that world that they're buying houses, they need refis, things like that. So it's definitely paid me back. I mean, I've had a decent return on investment from it, but it's nice to be able to help people that are really out there committing their time and their resources to something that I really stand behind and am interested in as well, and vice versa. I try to take good care of them; they take good care of me. So it's nice within that network, to have people that really believe in what I do, and they're going to go to somebody, so they want to go to somebody who, has the same beliefs that they do.
It's interesting because I was having a personal conversation with someone on the team earlier today on this topic of actually investing time in either other people or other things, and maybe not with the expectation to get something back. But they were realizing that it always does come back in one way or another. It
does.
Was that something that you, Tom, learned over time, or did you get that from growing up?
I learned it over time. I never went into it, like when I started volunteering down at Paul's, I never went into it with the idea that I was going to get something personal back out of it, whether personal or business-wise. It was more just, it was a cause that I believed in. I rescue dogs at home. My dogs are actually tattooed on me.
Wow. What kind of dogs do you have?
I have a pit bull boxer mix named Hank, and I have a Chihuahua, like Jack Russell maybe mix, named Benny.
All right.
So they're my boys, in addition to my son. And, just being involved and seeing what went into, my own dogs before they ultimately came to me, with being fostered and everything else, it was just something that I felt strongly about and wanted to help out. So that's how I helped out.
What about you, Capri? Was it something that you were taught growing up, or something you learned over time, just accidentally, maybe having more time in your hands and being in the right place at the right time?
I learned it over time. Although it took a really long time for me to see, like, at least business-wise, like, it didn't come back right away, nor was I expecting it to. But it was weird how, after a certain amount of time had passed, I did notice it come back. But somebody had said to me, whatever point, like, good people know good people. And, you want to align with yourself with people who think the way you do, as long as it's a positive thought. So I think that I always knew Tommy cared. And so when we were doing business together in the beginning, and I don't know what sparked the first transaction. I can't remember how we got there, but there's a picture on my Facebook of Tommy. The night before settlement, or before the appraiser had to come back, Tommy's scraping and painting window sills because because the FHA appraiser said that there was lead paint, so he's scraping and painting window sills, and I drop him off a 6-pack to help him get through the job. So that was the beginning of where my business picked up, because I realized I loved being able to help people who really needed me, like first-time home buyers. And then Tommy was on board, to do the same. And that's kind of how we got started, really, well, at least how I got started really doing serious business.
So you started in the business originally, you had that opportunity for someone that you worked for. It seemed like that didn't go well. I can empathize with that. One of the values of Culture Matters is trusting yourself so you can trust in others. It makes me think, like, okay, what you're saying now and who you've attracted in your life, good people. There was a decision at one point where you could have decided to be bitter over that, but it doesn't seem like you decided that. How did you develop through that?
Well, like there's so much soul searching that happens when you're in a business that's failing. So I started in 2004, bought my first house in 2005, and then shortly afterwards, like, I thought I was amazing in real estate. Like I thought I'm just jumping in here and making tons of money and I'm amazing. And then quickly I realized that I was not very good. And I didn't have any direction. I didn't have a plan. And then when the market started to turn, everybody always jokes that when during the recession, nobody wanted to give Capri anything nice for Christmas because she's just going to sell it on eBay. So my coworker, I moved to Remax 12 years ago, and my coworkers, every box that came in, I was using it to ship out something else that was one of my prized possessions that I could no longer have just to pay my mortgage. I refused to let go of my South Philly row home. I just loved it so much. A lot of things happened during that time. I contemplated getting out of the business altogether. I trained and fundraised for a marathon only because if I fundraised for the marathon, they would send me to Paris and they would pay for it. And I hadn't had a vacation in years. So I trained for the Paris Marathon with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. I fundraised all the money, and then part of the fundraising, 1/4 of your fundraising goes to you getting to the race and doing the race.
Wow.
So, there was a lot of things that happened during that time. I realized I loved getting involved in charities, more so like with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. I tried to get out of the business. I applied for a job at Lululemon, went on an interview as assistant manager, and they told me I was overqualified for the job. So I'm like, shit. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Please.
So
you don't work for Lulu. They go corporate.
So I didn't get the job at Lululemon. And I was like, all right, well, I guess real estate's the only thing I'm qualified to do. I was off and on with college. I was trying to graduate, and I did graduate, but it was like I didn't really have a degree at that moment. And so I sat down and I said, what are the things that I actually like? And this is 2011. What are the things I actually like about my job, and who are the people I like to work with? And that's when I really focused in on, this is 2 years after I started to realize that I really like first-time home buyers. Why don't I just target them and then not give away, but maybe target them and don't lean so much on luxury stuff or people who don't feel like they need me. I want to be needed.
So do you believe, in a sense, in that chaos, you found your order?
Yeah.
Found your niche.
Absolutely.
And at the time, was it that first-time home buyer general consumer that you could help?
Yep. Yeah. And it was 2011. It was shortly after. They always say after you run a marathon, you shouldn't make any life decisions right away because you go through this not a depression, but you spent so much time training for this thing and now it's over and you kind of lose a little bit of direction. And now here I am trying to make a big life decision. So it was the end of 2011, I think, when I really started to hone in. And then by 2013, it was like I was a different real estate agent.
Wow. Fundamentally, what do you think is the biggest character trait that you developed in that time that you would say to someone that if you could meet yourself, years prior, you'd say?
Discipline. You need, through marathon training and fundraising, I realized that you can't be successful without having discipline that's inside of you.
Wow. Now, within the time that you got focused, there's 88% or 93% of realtors, they get in the business and aren't in the business within the first few years. And now you have a team, is that correct?
Yep.
And you're building, so anyone watching this potentially want to work with you. What should they be looking at, I guess, in the mirror and telling themselves to let's say they got an opportunity to work with you that would impress you of how they thought and what they said, so then maybe they could work with you being so successful in the business?
Well, somebody who has a close alliance, or somebody who's well connected to a charity or some type of something that that shows me that they can be with something. So like, one of our team members, she plays softball on this Sunday league, and, she fundraises during the year for them. She loves playing with them. She loves her team members. My husband he plays another sports one, but he plays with his soccer friends, and he has multiple leagues. So like, I like to see somebody has other interests that are good for you, and also where you can, make friends and contacts through these other programs.
What if they're a massively multiplayer online game? I'm just kidding.
Where is he going
What
with
if they're in a guild? No, I'm just kidding. Tom's like, yeah, man, got my RuneScape account.
Fortnite going, let's go.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, so people that show like group behavior, so they can meet people.
Yeah.
And you think that sounds like almost common sense, but how hard was it in the beginning of real estate, or was it not, to connect with new people?
I'm better one-on-one. Like, you're never going to invite me to a networking party that I'm going to go to unless it's, somebody who really means a lot to me. So I don't go, and I don't try to mass quantity. And then with LLS, I don't think I got, I joined in 2010 is when we started training. I don't think I got my first lead until 2014 from LLS. Since then, it's been great.
Wow.
But it's just, it's interesting when people can be passionate about something. Like, the thing I love about my husband, who's on my team, is also the thing I can't stand about him. But that's for another show. Is that his constitution and his intensity and his drive towards whatever thing he's focusing on. People can see that.
Wow. Like,
whatever
what would you call it? Passion, enthusiasm, some kind of. What's the ad budget behind this? Can we put that out? Yeah. What about you, Tom? What is the biggest, the most important character trait that you would say that you've developed over the last, it's been a couple years that you've been in the mortgage business.
It's been 17.
17 years that you would say to someone, hey, work on this, and this will help you create meaningful relationships.
I think a lot of it is sort of what she was just touching on, especially with Neil, is just determination, perseverance. I remember when I started in the mortgage business, my first manager gave me a book called Rhinoceros Success.
Oh, wow.
And it's a little, you could read it in a night easily. But the whole gist behind the book is basically like, go out and be a rhino, be thick-skinned, be the man, just bulldoze through everything and just take it head on. And whatever happens, it doesn't matter. It's not going to hurt you. Like, you're still in charge of it. And I actually go back and read that book maybe like once a year. And like I said, it's a real quick read, but it's it really puts things in perspective for you. It's real easy to, lose a referral source over something. Somebody gets a new in-house lender, and the brokers force them to use it, or a relationship just goes south. That happens sometimes too. It's real easy to just sort of sit there and feel sorry for yourself. And I did that, 2 years ago. I lost, in the same week, I lost like 2 very good referral sources from the same company. And it's nothing personal, it just is what it is. And, instead of really going out there and digging in and like, all right, well, I got to replace them basically, or rekindle them, one or the other. But I didn't. I just kind of sat around feeling sorry for myself and got away from that whole mindset of being a rhino. And, once I sort of pulled myself out of that and hey, listen, nobody's giving it to you. You got to go out and get it. And once I started doing that, it was right back. And then, I had my number for that year, and the next year went up, and, this year going up again. And, 2019 going to be even bigger. And, with the people that I have coming in, as I'm trying to hire, other loan officers from my branch, that's kind of one of the things I really try to instill in them is like, listen, it's a numbers game, and you can't be afraid of the no's. I have a buddy of mine that I used to go out with all the time back when before any of us were married or anything. This guy was for as much as I think I'll talk to anybody. I mean, this guy would walk up to any woman in the bar. You pick out the best looking woman there. He'll walk right up to her, talk to her, get shot down, walk away with a smile. Mm-hmm. He loved getting shot down because every no was closer to a yes.
Wow.
And you got to have that mental toughness to be able to accept the no's to get to the yes. And that's something I think a lot of people, very easily lose track of.
How did, you were not going to let the world, because the world was crumbling in a sense, or at least we all thought that when the Great Recession was occurring. You're talking about selling things, not leaving South Philadelphia. Well, where did the rhino in you come from at that time? Did you read the same book?
Yeah, well, I wasn't going to go move home.
Is that a panther?
I was not selling my house and moving home with my
You're not
mommy.
a rhino. We're not saying that.
I was just not going to give up. I don't know. Like, I just found owning my home, especially by the time I settled in my house, I guess I was 23. So I was so proud of being so young and owning my house. And, back then, like, I bought it, and settled in 7 days and didn't do a home inspection and no mortgage contingency. But I did it, I did it all on my own without any help. So I was just so proud of that. That was like my why at the moment, was my independence, I suppose.
Wow.
But going back to Tommy and being a rhino, it's not like he's like this bulldog mortgage broker that shows up at your office unannounced with fattening foods.
So don't watch these. Don't do that. You'll be at the wrath. I'll feel it. Yeah.
I mean, I remember in our other office, I used to also work at the front desk. When times were slow, my broker gave me a job at the front desk. And we would, if we saw a mortgage broker, we'd all go run and hide behind the door. No, not from him. Not from him. So, I mean, he's always a pleasure to be around. And he earns your business because he gets it, especially for my first-time home buyers. Like, he explains everything. He's relatable. I always tell my clients to try to meet him in person somewhere at a bar, because then they can get him to buy them a drink.
That other guy's not going to be there, right?
That's right. That's when the rhino comes out.
And then Tommy won me over, which was, I was representing the buyer, and the sellers were selling their house in the suburbs. And hopefully people can follow it. Sellers were selling their house in the suburbs, and I was representing them in the purchase here in town. And the buyers for the suburb house were their lender was making all these mistakes, and it was super stressful. It was an older couple, and Tommy told that lender how to do her job. And he's like, "Listen," I said, "Why don't you just do the loan?" He's like, "No, I'm not going to do the loan because then it's going to slow the process down." So instead, he told that lender how to do her job just so we could get to the purchase end of it. And
culture coach.
That's right. That's how we do it.
And he's been good at checking, he wants to make sure his company helps him be flexible. So there's been times where Tommy's moved to a different company because they weren't giving him the movement that he needed. Because, like, I don't know, sometimes as a consumer, if you see somebody change companies a bunch of times, like, you don't know what's going on. But Tommy, like, it's only because, like, he's used to having the control of the reins. Like, at Cole Taylor, the loan officer or the processor was, like, in the next room, or the underwriter was in the next room. So he's used to, like, having control.
Wow.
So he is the good kind of rhino.
Well, it makes
if there is one.
Well, so this is very interesting. I mean, we've connected, and obviously it was on social media, but like, I follow you, I watch your stuff, and it seems like vice versa. Yeah. And what's really interesting is my client, Brad, has about 60 rhinos in his office.
Really?
And the whole logo, because if you Google, it's like surreal right now. If you Google the rhino horn, it's a 3, and it means like unstoppable force and like all this crazy stuff. So I'm just sitting here like, what is going on right now? Like, the alignment is extremely powerful. So now, today, you started with the focus in the FHA.
Well, not FHA, first-time home buyers.
First-time home buyers.
So a lot of them at the time fell into FHA, but we tried to get away from that once FHA made the PMI lifelong, because in Philly, so many of the neighborhoods that my first-time home buyers are searching, there's a great appreciation. Yes. So they would have to refinance out of it. So then the 3% conventional program happened and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's when we just started shifting gears and really looking out for what's in the client's best interest. A lot of times FHA was great. It was a 3.5% down payment. Yeah. The seller could pay all the closing costs if you can negotiate it for them. Conditions on the property, things like that. But really, it got to a point where it wasn't necessarily the best option anymore. Now, let's look at a conventional. All right, maybe they don't get as much of an assist, but how can we still get around that? How can we get them in for low money out of pocket, and still give them the best terms for the best long term hold? And a lot of these people, the house might only be, a 5-year plan. But, just like Capri, they're going to hold that and turn that place into a rental property and let it continue to appreciate and let somebody else pay the mortgage down for them. And it's really, kind of a better long-term strategy than putting them in something FHA just to get them through the door.
Wow. And Capri, you have been investing in real estate or doing flips, is that correct?
We don't do flips. We do investing. So we buy and hold.
Has that always been an interest since the time that you got involved in the real estate business, or did you discover it over time?
I had no interest in being a landlord, and then I rented.
A lot of people can empathize with that.
Yeah, I didn't have any interest, and then I rented out my first house, and the tenants that moved in there were so amazing. If we ever do this again, I'll tell you the machete story.
Well, we're right here. Right through
As long as the chainsaw story.
Well, in South Philly, for whatever reason, machetes are like your machetes and baseball bats are like the weapon of choice. I guess you keep it behind your door for if there's an issue.
Makes sense.
Be warned.
So shortly after my tenants move in, it's two women. They soon afterwards got married, and there was an argument over a parking spot outside. Okay. A 70-year-old man and like a 40 or 50-year-old guy. And the 70-year-old guy tosses his coffee in the younger guy's face, because he scraped his car in getting into the parking spot, and he always does that. And then the younger guy, the 40, 50-year-old guy, goes home, grabs a machete, and starts swinging it around. And then the older guy went to block his head, and the guy cut off two of his fingers that were still connected right here. And then
real estate stories.
And then cut the old guy's head. So then the old guy gets the young guy down on the ground and starts pummeling him with his bloody stump of a hand. So then one of my tenants, Colleen, who's also she had been a firefighter and worked for the ER. EMT.
A medic? Okay.
Yeah. So she's telling Tom, who's beating the guy up, she's like, "You're going to get in trouble. You better go take yourself to the hospital." And then after he left, I'm pretty sure Colleen's the one who picked up his fingers and gave them to the police officer to make sure that they got to Tom.
So they could use them again.
Yeah, so
right?
they could reattach.
Okay.
So I had heard this from another neighbor. I didn't know what picked up the fingers or anything like that. My neighbor had texted me and said, "Oh my God, did you hear about the machete story?" And I said, "No." And then I ran into my tenants a couple of weeks later at our local bar, Bombs. It's amazing. And I thought that they were going to call me to try to get out of their lease because they had just moved in. So I see them, I'm like, oh shit, they're going to ask to leave. I'm never going to be able to rent this place again because of this. And it turns out
because of the machete attack. Yeah.
So it turns out Colleen, one of the women, was the one who picked up the fingers and helped the old guy. And they love it. They love the block. They love the neighborhood. They've been there since 2014.
So is that on applications? That could be a system. It's on. How do you feel about it?
Are you willing to?
Yeah.
Yeah. So ever since having them, they've been very rewarding. Colleen's in the Philadelphia Fire Department, and then we bought another house together where we have another couple. Where one of the other tenants is also in the fire department. So we've been really lucky in having good tenants, but we purposely under rent our properties so that we have multiple applicants to choose from. So we can just go with whoever feels the best.
Wow. It almost seems that the thought process of, some realtors, they price properties below market to drive up that competition. Is that kind of the ethos that you've been keeping in the business since you started? That competitive, hey, we want to increase the value of this?
Yeah, I'm kind of risk adverse. Most of my money is I have a lot of life insurance. Most of my money is in mutual funds. And so, buying an extra investment property was scary enough for me. Even being in the business, it's scary because it's a risk. But to me, it was less risky to make less money on the front end and have somebody who's going to take care of my property. And that's kind of how I was in real estate also, where there's a lot of people who make money really quickly in real estate. They maybe pay for leads or do a lot of advertising up front, but then they're not there in the long run. Because because they don't get any repeat business because they're terrible or they don't care. So it took me a lot longer to be successful, but where we are now, I'm much more proud of the path that I took.
Wow, so that's interesting. So was it that you took a relationship-oriented, like, I'm going to stay in contact with people that I've served?
Yeah.
Business model? It's almost, it sounds silly. Business model? It's like, you are a good human? Like, okay, so is that what your approach was? Because, like, we a lot of people, hey, the telephone. Some people love that. Some people don't, but they do it to get the quick business. So what was your, you found your niche, you're disciplined, you're focused, you're making it happen, you're getting results. How did you build it then? Was it through the relationships?
Yeah, I check in. I mean, I don't always call because I don't love being on the phone. But I'll be like, I drove past your house or I ran past your house. Like, I'm thinking of you. Facebook's great. Like, all the social medias are great. I can see when people have kids or, what's happening in their lives, and I can check in. A lot of times, like after I settle on a property, 6 months later, I travel with a huge bag of rolled foil-backed duct tape. And when I go visit people 6 months or so after they bought their house, and I ask them, did you ever tape up your ductwork where the gaps were? And they say no. And then we pull out the tape and we tape up
That's awesome.
their ductwork. So I know that they didn't do it.
Wow. Yeah, I like that a lot. So then, you're actually adding value.
Yeah, I mean, I try to. I care. I want... I could make $0 on the first deal, and as long as I knew that they were happy with my service and that we could, continue on the relationship.
Wow, that's powerful. So what does the road ahead look like with building this team and building these relationships? What does 2019 look for you guys?
I'm trying to get knocked up.
I'm not part of that one. Hold on.
Yo, this is amazing. Best interview ever.
Let's keep that part.
Telling the truth is important. No, this is very important. That's exciting.
So we're trying to, I'm blushing.
This is exciting.
We're trying to start a family, but my clients have been so great. Like, I'm very open about it. We haven't had an easy time, so it's been an amazing way to connect with other clients because I realize there's so many people out there that have fertility issues, and they've all been super supportive with the process so far. And I have a really good. One of the other girls downstairs who has a team leader. She's a team leader. She had a child while working like full time, and so she's like a huge inspiration in terms of getting it all done and being able to become a mom.
Yeah, so this is an interesting topic. Even right now in the world, there's so much going on with equality of outcome and rights, and not to go all the way in that direction, but what is it like to be a very decisive, independently minded, very I would say a very confident, powerful woman in like corporate America or just in business? Because and one that's interested in having children, because it's a lot. It seems like that would be a lot. I wouldn't know how to empathize.
Well, I mean, I always say, real estate is a real job, but I always say I don't have like a real job. Like, I can maneuver it in a way that best fits me. Like, we're taking over that office. So when I have a baby, we'll have this side, and then maybe we have the baby on that side, and maybe we have like a mommy's helper. So like, I'm trying to think of ways to make it so that I can still continue to work. Plus, I built a team that I trust, like my husband and Stephanie. Oh, so my tenant, who, not the one who picked up the fingers, but her wife, it now works for us.
Wow.
So she's one of our team members. So I have a team member. We have Whitney and Rachel, who are assistants, that are amazing to pick up the slack when I'm actually in the hospital or if I'm not feeling well. They're going to be great. So I have a support system. I don't necessarily feel like this like little girl in a man's world. I do find it funny when people talk to me and they're like, they don't know anything about me, and I'm like, you don't know me, but. So I feel like I have an upper hand. I wish people would underestimate me all the time.
Wow. Okay. So has that been something? Because, for example, I basically bodybuilded from like 12 years old to my mid-20s, and every conversation I ever had, being 40 pounds bigger, was about working out, not about anything to do with business. Personally, really bothered me, and I felt like, wow, I really would wish people would take me serious, like for maybe the fact that I could read.
With your shirt on or off?
Well, that's a different YouTube. That's a different video. No. So, How has that helped give you? Has that helped give you more credibility within yourself to be able to go and help someone buy a home or sell a home in a very aggressive industry because everyone's out to get the business?
Yeah. I don't look at it as like aggression. I look at it as just trying to use my skills to win the transaction or win the deal. So I try not to be aggressive. Although I know that is a tactic, I just try. I use my strengths to get what I want.
Has it made you stronger to have to feel? Have you felt like you have been, we're not expecting much out of that one, and then you've overcome that with your hard work?
Yeah, absolutely.
Has that helped you
in
the long run? Do you believe?
I know I wasn't very good for a long time, or not that I wasn't very good, but the market was rough. So maybe people don't expect a lot out of me, or I kind of fly under the radar. I don't pay for any advertising at all. We just started doing a farm this year, so I don't pay for any advertising. So it's not like my face is going to be plastered all these different places. So people might not. If they've been in the business long enough, they probably have heard of me. But like for the most part, I kind of fly under the radar. So when I do think that people don't expect it.
Has that helped you?
Yeah, then I jump up and pop them in the nose.
What about you, Tom? You seem like you're in your face, aggressive. Ryan, no, I'm kidding. What in any business or in life, it seems as though even the person on the playground that's the bully felt like they were bullied at one point.
Sure.
And we're always like the odd man out in some form or fashion. Or even when we're like super successful in one thing, we try to cross-pollinate and do something new. People are like, well, get out of here.
Right.
And I've learned that just interviewing people and learning from people at all walks of life. Like, we're all the odd man out at some point. Was there any particular moment, whether it is in the mortgage industry or maybe before you got in the mortgage industry, where you felt like you were the odd man out?
I
can't imagine. Tommy's so cool.
There's been plenty of times where, where I felt odd man out or just, I don't want to say incapable because I don't really ever feel that way. It's just, I feel like I'm not there yet. Like I got to learn it to get to that level where I need to be, or whether I'm actually there or not, at least just in my head, like whether or not I feel like I'm in a position of, I know this well, like I'm authoritative on the subject or whatever the case may be. But it's funny, I remember years ago. So my dad owns a little used car dealership and a car rental place, and used car dealers, like maybe other than mortgages, it's not really a reputation that's any worse. So, but my dad's been in the same place since '87. He's 31, almost 32 years in the same place. He's getting ready to retire, I think. But he's had a great business, very successful, ton of repeat clients, all the same things that Capri and I go after. And I remember I was probably a teenager when we had this conversation. I don't remember the scenario, but it was basically somewhere along the lines of he was selling a car to somebody where he's basically taking a loss at this point. And he said to me, he's like, I want to be able to look the person in the eye I do business with after we do business. So if I see that person at the grocery store, I see them at church or the bar or wherever, that I want to make sure that I did everything I can to be confident enough to look them in the eye after the transaction. I don't want to ever have to hide from a past client. And it stuck with me all these years. I mean, it's probably 25 years ago we had this conversation, maybe longer. And I remember going to this workshop maybe like 10 years ago for it was in some sort of guy was going to come in and then make every loan officer a millionaire kind of thing. And he opens the workshop, and I'll never forget this. I sit in the second row. He opens the workshop, and he's like, is there anybody in this room that likes being compared to a used car dealer? And I raised my hand. And he's like, no, I said that likes to be compared. I'm like, I heard you. And he's like, well, you totally just ruined this for me. He goes, because I was going to say they don't like being compared to you either. I get it. But I'll tell you right now, I have no shame in being in the mortgage business because of that thing right there. I've never done business with a client that if it wasn't the right thing to do by them, I won't do it. And to me that's important. I mean that's just like Capri said. I mean I've had deals where I've lost money on, not even not where I just made zero. I literally lost money, And it doesn't matter. It was the right thing to do, and it could be anything. I mean, it could be that I set something up and I made a mistake when I set it up, and there's a cost associated with that mistake. If I made it, I'm going to eat it. I'm not going to pass that on to the client. No, I mean, I've had it. I remember not that long ago, I was doing a transaction like 300. I think it's like 379.9 was the purchase price, and the mortgage company hires the appraiser, and the house was like out like past like Chester County somewhere, so it wasn't one of our regular appraisers. The guy brings in at 379 even. It's $900 short on a $379,000 deal. So I contest the appraisal, and they're like, well, what's the where are the comps that you want to support the value? I'm like, I don't need to support the value. I think he just made a mistake. I think he meant to do 379.9 and he did 379. So they send it back. Sure enough, he was sticking to his guns. He screwed us out of $900 basically. So before I even contacted the buyer or the realtors, I just restructured the deal where we made the sale price to 379.9. We brought the loan amount down, and I just gave the buyers a $900 lender credit. So the sellers still made what they needed to make. The buyers were still out of pocket exactly what they were supposed to be out of pocket, and it saved the transaction for both realtors. And the buyer's agent is like, listen, you don't have to do that. It's already done. And that, to me, that $900 was well worth the relationship. And it wasn't anybody else's fault. I mean, it wasn't my fault either, but it wasn't the buyer's fault, it wasn't the seller's fault, and it wasn't the realtor's fault. Nobody made a mistake there. It was just that the appraiser decided he was that good that he could get within $900 on $380,000, and that's it. We probably still could have made it work, but why bother? In that scenario, that relationship's well worth $900.
Do you believe that advice that your father, that remodeling that you grew up, could have had to do with that thought process?
Oh, it absolutely did. Yeah. Yeah, that's at the forefront every day. There's and it's it's not like I go into it with the mentality of like, all right, like how can I screw this person? But it's when things happen in a transaction, and they do happen sometimes. It could be a million different things that pop up. But when something happens, I've always had this kind of mantra, I guess, that the issue isn't the problem. The issue is how the problem's handled.
Wow. Okay.
And to me, it needs to be handled in a way that I can look that person in the eye when it's all said and done.
That's powerful.
Whether they agree with it or not is another thing. I mean, sometimes things happen, and no matter what you do, you're not going to make a person happy. But that's a whole other story. I mean,
that's when my question, Capri, how do you manage people's emotions in the real estate business? As far as because
I cry more than anybody else.
Really?
I just outcry them, and then it's all fine.
Because you carry yourself very well and very decisively, and I wanted to cry when I first met you, and like, hey, I better have my stuff together, deal with you. You carry yourself very strong. At the same token, you built a business based on relationships and the long term, and you're in a business where 90% of people aren't in the business within the first 2 years. You're in there for 14.
Good job.
Yeah. So, and helping with charities, doing things, owning real estate properties, a family that you're building. How do you deal with people? It's hard.
Lexapro and Pinot Grigio.
That's amazing. That's an Instagram ad.
But that being said, I get excited when people need me. I think that's why I didn't like people who had bought and sold all these properties before. They felt like they didn't need me, and they always were trying to like switch things up or like didn't need me. They don't need me. I don't need them. And it's the same thing with my sellers. Like a lot of times I don't work with sellers. I'll turn down or refer out the listings because I'm only going to work with people who I feel like need me. The most recent review on Yelp, hopefully they didn't filter it like they've been messing around lately.
They do that quite a bit, actually.
My most recent review on Yelp was I sold a house for a woman whose sister passed away, and she was like young, like she was in her 40s when she passed, and very lively and active. And I knew I could help her. And a lot of the things that I can draw from past experiences. So I knew I could help her because my dad passed away, and didn't have a will, and I had gone through the whole process not too long ago. So I knew all the, like, some tricks in terms of him managing an estate, you know, and how she was feeling. And so all of, when I deal with people, I remember the first house that I bought. I remember what I felt like. The second house that I bought, I remember what it felt like. Everything, it's all very raw to me. So when I help people buy their houses, I try to always remember, you know, what does it feel like when you're the week after settlement, your seller said there's never a leak, and then you have this terrible leak, you know, like, so I try to tell them everything that's like the worst that could happen. So there's not so much, people aren't, I mean, they're like, crap, this really sucks. But Capri warned us, and then we got the home warranty, so now we're okay. So I try to manage expectations, prep them for the worst. And so there's a lot less tears or anger because and I feel like a lot of other businesses that make a lot more money than us don't do that as well as I do it. To me, so like it's, I'm even more proud of being able to do it now that I realize, like, going through the fertility stuff, like these doctors, they don't tell you what to expect. They give you all these drugs that you don't know what you're taking. And then when crazy stuff happens, they're annoyed that you're emailing them saying, oh my God, this just happened. And they're like, oh, you know, that's just a side effect. Well, you could have told me that ahead of time. Like, I know you give me this brochure that's this thick, but it would be nice to have like a little personal talk here. So I think that it really goes back to, I did everything wrong the first time. You know, like, I know now if you buy a rehab, you want to have a really low deductible because stuff's going to go down the first year, and then it's really nice when you don't have to pay so much for the, you know, insurance to pick it up. So everything that I prepare them for is probably because I did it wrong.
Wow, that's powerful. The empathy that comes from experiencing something and then actually modeling and teaching it. It's really powerful. So I want to know about this leukemia. Is it a marathon that you do?
So LLS has multiple campaigns. They have Light the Night, which is really popular, where people create teams and they fundraise, and then at night they hold these lanterns and walk, you know, in certain areas. Like, so everybody has their own. There's like Eastern PA, there's Lehigh Valley, Jersey, stuff like that. Then I've never done Light the Night. Then there's the team in training, which is the endurance program. So you can do, I've done a 100-mile bike ride around Lake Tahoe.
Huh?
Right?
Yeah, 100-mile bike ride around, and I'm terrified of riding a bike, by the way, terrified, still. I've done several triathlons with LLS, and then I've done, I don't know how many I've done with LLS, probably 5 with LLS marathons. And so you fundraise, they train you with like really, really good coaches through the whole program. And the fundraising pays for the race and sometimes a portion of your room and board, depending on how much you raise. So 25 cents of every dollar goes to you getting there. The 75 cents of every dollar, actually that might have changed a little bit now because there's so much competition with like different fundraising endurance groups. But the same thing is there. So that was where I got involved in LLS. They have smaller things. You could do a half marathon. They have TNT Your Way. So if you wanted to do the turkey trot on Thanksgiving and fundraise for that, you can start a fundraising page through LLS for your turkey trot and ask your friends. So that's really cool. Then in 2015, I was nominated for Woman of the Year,
wow.
Which is basically they take people who have a connection to the community, who have a compassion for the cause, and also a bit of competitiveness. And you have 10 weeks to raise as much money as possible. And I raised $52,000 in
wow.
10 weeks, which I thought was amazing. I got to name a research portfolio. The winner won, raised $80,000. But it was an amazing thing, and now I help with like the nominating committee and stuff. So those are the 3. There's also smaller ones like I think Dude Hates Cancer does bowling, but the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society huge, and a lot of the money that you raise all stays local, so it goes, there's like amazing work, and I sent you the video. They use now, like Dr. June, and this is a few years old now, but still so prevalent, is that they use viruses to kill other cancer. So they clean or wash the virus, and then they use like tuberculosis to kill stomach cancer, and the HIV virus to kill the blood cancers. So that was a huge, and the majority of it's funded from LLS, like billions of dollars.
So locally, people get together, fundraise, they run and do triathlons, and you're a part of that, and you were nominated for Women of the Year. Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. How do people that are watching this get involved?
I would say pick out what you think you would be the best at. Like if you want to, when I did Paris, I had never walked more than 10 miles. But I really wanted to go to Paris. Yeah. So they trained me essentially from like a novice runner. I had just quit smoking.
This is good.
Yeah, so you don't think you have to be an endurance athlete to start with Team in Training. You can do the Rothman 8K, which is coming up. So if you wanted to if exercise is something on your radar, but you're not so sure about it, or the coaches are amazing. They're friends of mine, lifelong friends. And then if you're like, you know what, I really don't want to exercise, then you could do Light the Night, which is kind of just a nice leisurely walk, and it's really beautiful with all the lanterns. Or if you have, what, I really want, like, you think that you have an intensity and you have a lot of good connections and some friends with some good money, or just it has to be in your gut and in your heart to do the man-woman, but that's an amazing program. Our best man, Josh Hoppe, he did it, he's in cancer research, and he won and raised over $80,000 this past June, and it's so much fun. So like if you have good connections.
The gala's a good time.
Yeah, the gala is a good time. Tommy came, because he was one of our sponsors.
Can you start your own group of different events? Yep,
you can have as many events as you want in those 10 weeks. So you can't collect, as soon as you get nominated, you can start planning. So you really want to reach out to like the corporations and stuff, because the corporate donations are bigger, but they take longer to come in. And then you can get promissory notes, but you cannot collect a single dollar until kickoff. So you have like literally 10 weeks to collect as much money as possible.
I know what you're thinking, Tom. Machete throwing.
That's right.
You got it.
Yes.
We'll see. You want to put some fingers up, Jay?
Yeah.
No.
10 grand for every finger.
No.
See how close we can get.
I'm very much not it. So, fast forward, you guys, 2009, you started collaborating, building a business, I think, on service. What is one thing, I'll go Tom first, everything that you've learned in the 17 years that you've been in the mortgage business, that you would sum up into like 1-2 sentences to yourself a week before you got involved in mortgages?
Prior to getting involved?
Yeah, so it's a week before you got into the business. Everything that you've learned over the last 17 years, what conversation are you having with yourself?
It's really to, go back to what I was saying a couple minutes ago about doing right by your client. I think business drives business. So the more satisfied and happy clients that you have, the more that's going to pay returns and dividends. Just like Capri mentioned earlier, I don't buy or do any paid advertising either. Everything is a word-of-mouth referral. And it's taken me a long time to get to the point where I am. And honestly, I'm still not where I'm at, where I want to be. I want to be, I want to do more next year, more the year after that. I'm not complacent with any of that. So, the more clients I have, the more people I have that are, referring me business down the line. Each client might be good for 3, 4, 5 referrals. So, multiply that out by however many clients you have, it starts to add up after a while. And I think that's a great way to build a business.
It seems to have worked out pretty good.
Yeah, it's worked out well.
We have some clients that are like belligerent if they don't use us. Like Anna and Mike, they will, you have to use Tommy and you have to use Capri. And like she gets angry if her friends don't. And then we're stuck trying to clean up the pieces if they do try to go somewhere else first. But yeah. Yeah, so same thing with Tommy. You just have to do well. Like you have to care. If you want to, our business is built on referral. It's the best way to go. Like people ask me, like if I go to a listing appointment and they're like, oh, well, I didn't see that you did any deals in Mount Airy this year. So do you even handle this area? And I always say, like, I don't have a niche market. I have a niche client. So like, it's like I will go where the people are that need me the most. So maybe 1 month it's Mount Airy, maybe 1 month it's South Philly. So, and that's always like the people are my lifeline. And so I have to care about them.
You're like Santa Claus. They're naughty or nice.
No,
I'm just kidding.
If you're naughty, you're in trouble.
Marketing, right? Final word, Capri, 30 seconds. What should people know about your team and what the growth of everything you're doing this year, 2019?
We just care. We want to help people, find live their best life in their best home. And if that's maybe a 2-year plan or a 10-year plan, we just, we really care, and we're fun to be around. So, like, we're going to make this process easy and enjoyable. I have a little girl with broad shoulders, so I can carry a lot of the stress that I don't want them to carry.
This was awesome. This was a lot of fun.
Thank
I
you.
love it. Yeah, I look forward to next time and more machete conversations.
There we go.
I'll work on another one for you.
All right, sweet.